Think about the most stressful moment of your financial life. Maybe it was a car that broke down on a Tuesday, and you had no idea how you were going to pay for it. Maybe it was a medical bill that showed up in the mail and sat on your kitchen counter for 3 weeks because opening it felt too heavy. Maybe it was just the quiet dread of checking your bank account before a purchase, that half second of anxiety before the number appears. Whatever it was, I want you to hold that feeling for a second, because that feeling has a name, and it isn't bad luck. It isn't irresponsibility. It's what financial scarcity actually feels like in the body. And tens of millions of Americans feel it every single day. Here's the thing nobody tells you. Most people spend their entire lives chasing a number that's too big. $1 million. Early retirement. A house in the right neighborhood. Financial freedom. These are real goals, and they're worth chasing. But somewhere in the obsession with the destination, almost everyone misses the single step that changes everything. The step that doesn't make you rich. The step that makes you stable. And stability, real, honest, boring stability, turns out to be one of the most psychologically transformative things money can buy. That step is your first $10,000. And the difference between having nothing and having that is often, genuinely, more life-changing than the difference between having $100,000 and having $1 million. That probably sounds wrong. So stay with me. Because by the end of this, you're going to see money differently. Right now, roughly 57% of Americans say they couldn't cover an unexpected $1,000 expense without borrowing money or going into debt. Not $10,000. $1,000. A single car repair. A single emergency room visit. A single month of unexpected unemployment. And for the majority of people in this country, any one of those things is enough to send the entire financial picture into a tailspin. And here's what that does to a person. Not just to their bank account, to their mind. Researchers at Princeton University ran a study that found something remarkable. When people are in a state of financial scarcity, when they're genuinely worried about not having enough, their cognitive bandwidth drops significantly. The mental space that scarcity occupies is so consuming that it measurably reduces a person's ability to think clearly, plan ahead, and make good decisions. The study found the cognitive impact of financial worry was equivalent to losing roughly 13 IQ points. Let that land for a second. Financial stress doesn't just feel bad. It actually makes it harder to think your way out of financial stress. The trap is self-reinforcing. The less money you have, the more mental space the worry consumes. The more mental space it consumes, the harder it becomes to do the things that would get you out. This is why living paycheck to paycheck isn't just a cash flow problem. It's a psychological state. A lens through which every decision gets filtered not by what's smart or what you actually want, but by what's immediately survivable. When you're in survival mode, you can't think in months. You think in days. You can't optimize. You react. You don't build. You patch. And the exhausting, demoralizing, relentless nature of that existence is something that no personal finance book written by a millionaire has ever truly captured. Because most of those books were written from the other side of stability. They tell you what to do once you can breathe. But they skip the part about what it takes to get your first real breath. So let's talk about what actually happens when you get there. When you cross $10,000 in savings for the first time, even a rough and perfect took longer than you wanted $10,000, something shifts. And it's not just financial. It's psychological. It's almost physical. The emergencies don't stop. The car still breaks down. The medical bill still arrives. Life still does what life does. But for the first time, those events are problems instead of catastrophes. And that distinction between a problem and a catastrophe is one of the most underrated improvements in quality of life that money can create. A problem is something you solve. A catastrophe is something that solves you. And $10,000 is often the precise difference between the two. Think about how differently you make decisions when you have a cushion versus when you don't. Without savings, every financial decision is made under duress. You take the job offer even if it's not quite right because you need the income now. You stay in the apartment that's too expensive because moving costs money you don't have. You put the repair on the credit card at 24% interest because there's no other option. Every choice is constrained not by what you want, but by what you can afford to risk. With $10,000 behind you, the entire calculus changes. You can say no to the job that doesn't feel right because you have runway. You can negotiate instead of just accepting. You can wait for the better option instead of grabbing the available one. You can absorb a setback without it becoming a crisis. You have, for the first time, something that most people underestimate completely. And options are freedom in its most practical, real-world form. Not the inspirational poster version of freedom. Not the retire at 40 fantasy. Just the quiet, daily, profoundly underrated freedom of knowing that if something goes wrong today, you are going to be okay. There's a concept in psychology called the scarcity mindset. And its opposite, the abundance mindset, gets thrown around in self-help circles so much that it started to sound hollow. But the research behind it is real, and it matters here. When people operate from scarcity, the focus narrows. The time horizon shrinks. Risk feels existential. Opportunity feels irrelevant because surviving today is more urgent than building tomorrow. When people cross into a position of even modest stability, that changes. The mind begins to open. Long-term thinking becomes possible, not because the person changed, but because their circumstances did. The same brain that couldn't see past Friday when it was in survival mode starts asking, what do I actually want my life to look like in 5 years? What risks am I willing to take? What am I building toward? This is why $10,000 matters so much more than the number suggests. It doesn't just change your bank balance. It changes the operating system your brain is running on. And a brain running on stability makes categorically better decisions than a brain running on fear. But here's the part of this story that doesn't get told enough. Most people never get there. Not because they lack the income. Not because they lack the intelligence. But because the path to the first $10,000 is almost uniquely difficult compared to every dollar that comes after it. Every financial setback hits hardest when you have nothing behind you. Every unexpected expense wipes out whatever you manage to put away. Every attempt at saving gets interrupted by the exact emergencies that saving was supposed to prevent. It's a catch-22 that is genuinely brutal. You need savings to absorb shocks. But the shocks keep destroying your savings before they have a chance to grow. And so people cycle. Save a little, lose it, start over, save a little, lose it again. The finish line keeps moving. The progress never feels permanent. And eventually, some people stop trying. Not because they gave up, but because the math just kept refusing to cooperate. Which means the most important financial advice anyone can give, more important than investment strategies, more important than tax optimization, more important than almost anything else, is this: protect the first $10,000 like it is the foundation of everything. Because it is. Don't touch it for lifestyle. Don't borrow from it for convenience. Don't rationalize spending it on something that feels urgent, but isn't truly an emergency. Let it sit. Let it become permanent. Let your brain recalibrate around the fact that it exists. Because once that money has been there long enough to feel real, long enough that you've been through a crisis, and you didn't have to use it, something changes in how you see yourself. You stop being someone who is always one step from disaster. You start being someone who handles things. And that identity shift, from financially fragile to financially capable, is something that no motivational speech can create. Only the money can create it. only the actual, real, sitting in the account money. The wealthy didn't start by being wealthy. Almost universally, they started by becoming stable. By building a buffer before building an empire. By understanding, somewhere early, that security isn't a reward you earn after you make it. It's the foundation you build before you can. Your first $10,000 won't make you rich. It won't buy you a house, or fund a retirement, or solve everything. But it might be the first time in your adult life that a financial emergency doesn't feel like a personal catastrophe. The first time a Monday morning doesn't carry the weight of everything that could go wrong. The first time money feels like something you're in control of rather than something that controls you. And that feeling, that quiet, unspectacular, deeply human feeling of being okay, turns out to be worth more than most people ever imagined. It's not the destination. But it might be the most important step you ever take. Generate images in our style line by line.